Hi, this is the first lesson in our series about research in our course on communication, research, and analysis for scientists and engineers. In this lesson, we will get you thinking about organizing yourself to do research efficiently. First, we'll look at all the different elements involved, from gathering information to writing and presenting at the end. Then, we'll consider how to achieve these from an organizational point of view. Finally, we'll look at the kinds of software you will need to do these jobs effectively, and I'll show you some elements of my workflow to give you an idea of why it's important to make sure your various tools work together. Remember that this is just an introduction. After this video is over, it's important you go through the rest of the lesson to make sure you have the right tools to move forward with your research. So, what does research involve? The first element is finding information. As scientists and engineers, we move forward by knowing what has been done before. This means that we can make sure to solve new problems or solve old problems in new or better ways. If we don't know what others have done, by reading their papers or listening to their talks, it's impossible for us to do a good job. We'll discuss this more in the information sources lesson. But for now, let's just say that there are lots of different kinds of sources. These include PDFs you can download from online databases, videos of conference presentations, and information you pick up from websites. As we gather all this information, we must keep it someplace safe and organize it so that we can retrieve what we need quickly and easily. That will allow us, when we're ready, to read and review the papers and other material and decide what is relevant to our own goals and what is not. Once you've reviewed what's out there, then it's time to do your own work. We don't talk about designing experiments, running simulations, or gathering data in this video because these are very discipline-specific tasks. However, you will have to think about where all the information that these activities generate will go. You also have to analyze the work you've done in the context of the literature. We'll cover the basics of this in the technical argument lesson in the communication section. There's also a special lesson on a particular type of engineering and technology analysis. However, many of the techniques you will need will be specific to your discipline, so we won't go into them here. Assuming what you've done is worthwhile, you'll then have to prove it by writing about your work, illustrating key concepts, and giving presentations explaining what you've done and what it means. We cover all of these topics in this course. However, before we get into detail on any of this, let's take a step back and look at how all these different tasks will fit together practically. In this diagram, you can see, in green boxes, lots of different contexts where information is likely to be generated, from the library to lectures to labs. The gray boxes show lots of different kinds of data, everything from your own ideas to books, papers, interviews, and links. The red elements show different types of functionality you may need in your software. Must-haves like a reference manager, word processor, electronic notebook, and presentation software are shown as clouds because they should ideally be synced. In the red boxes are nice-to-haves, such as transcription and handwriting to text. You may not need all this stuff, but what you do have should flow easily from one app to another. This may all seem very abstract at the moment, so let me give you some idea of what I'm talking about by giving you a glimpse into my own workflow. At the time I was making this video, I was in an online meeting with an engineer and I wanted to look up his recent papers. To do this is simple. I go into the library and find UCL Explore, and then look for his name and for a keyword. Now that I've found the paper I want, I click on it and then sign into the library to make sure that I'll get the access I need. As it happens, this paper is open access, so that's not necessary, but it's a good habit to sign in right away. Then I click on the link and download the PDF. Once I've got the file, I just pick it up and drag it into Mendeley, which is the reference manager that I use, and it's automatically imported into the system. I can see it when I go into my recently added papers. Now I just sync so I'm sure the paper is in the cloud as well as on my computer. I want to read the paper in a comfortable chair, so I use my iPad rather than my Mac. In Mendeley, I sync the database so that I know that it has the new paper I just added, and then find it in the recently added papers. I could close the sidebar and read it from here, and the Mendeley functionality is fine for annotation, but I have something else that I prefer to use, so I send the paper to liquid text. I then go back and grab another paper by the same authors and add it to the same liquid text file. Let me show you why I like this tool so much. It allows me to highlight some text and create an excerpt of it that's saved to a workspace area. I can add lots of different papers to the same file, create excerpts from each, and then see how they relate to each other, connecting the ones that are thematically linked. Once I've done that, I can take the papers, any annotations I've made, the excerpts, anything I want really, and send it onwards, most likely to Evernote, the electronic notebook I use. Because I have a premium account, which syncs between multiple devices, when I'm back at my computer, I can go and add other information to the same note, like the email the engineer sent me with details of a couple of other papers and a YouTube video. I can also add voice annotations, interviews, scribbles, whatever I want. When I'm playing with ideas or writing notes, I like to use a tool called Nebo. This allows me to scribble, which I sometimes find preferable to typing. In general, the handwriting recognition is pretty good, though not perfect, as you'll see. But then, my handwriting is also far from perfect. But what I particularly like is the ability to draw simple diagrams. I will sometimes add a lot of ideas on a topic I'm working on randomly, and then add arrows or lines to them, cluster them, move them around, and so forth. As you can see, it can be a bit fiddly to do exactly what you want, but for a certain kind of thinking, it works for me. Of course, I can then export the notes to Evernote when I'm done. The last thing I want to show you is how I add my citations when I'm writing. We'll talk more about referencing in the referencing and plagiarism lesson, but for now, let me quickly show you how easy it can be. First, I had to install a plugin from Mendeley into Word. This took about 2 minutes. Now I can simply look up the references I want as I write, add them to the text, and put my bibliography at the end. This diagram shows just a very few examples of the apps that can help with the various functions I've mentioned. There are lots more of them out there. This is good because everyone is different. We all have different ways of working. When you're deciding what you want to use, there are lots of things to think about. The most important issue is what equipment the software is going to have to run on, especially if you need it to work across multiple devices. You might also need to think about issues such as what your supervisor or colleagues use, or what kind of maths or chemical equation functionality you need, or even how much money you have. That's it for this video. In the lesson activities coming up, you're going to think about what's important to you and the context you're working in so that you can choose the tools that will work for you. If you can get these set up before you start doing your research, you'll find it a great help. For sure, you'll need an electronic notebook and a reference manager right from the beginning. However, In order to decide which reference manager will work best, you probably need to know what word processor you're going to use. The presentation software and visualization tools are less crucial at the beginning, so we'll wait until the visual presentation lessons to talk about these.